I mean, I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city, and I am the majority.
To me, censorship online is one of the biggest issues facing us in the lead up to the 2020 election.
And welcome to Whiskey Politics. I'm Dave Sussman, your host and purveyor at Whiskey Politics. Thanks for joining us. And if you haven't already done so, please follow us on all of our social media applications, including YouTube, if you can hit the subscribe and follow button. And that way you don't miss any of our interviews. And also, if you can give us a like and find us also on all of your favorite podcast applications, including Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and Google Play. Of course, always at the Ricochet Network, where you can both listen and watch our show, and our new platform, the Range Broadcasting Network. The Range Broadcasting Network is a fantastic place. They are adding some incredible talents on there, and we are proud to be a part of it. Today, we've got a twofer for you. We'll have the code here below as I'm doing this introduction. You can also find it in our liner notes if you're listening to this on your podcast. So just check the code for Zach McElroy. He is that Facebook whistleblower who stood up for free speech against one of the biggest tech titans, maybe the biggest tech titan there is, Facebook. And he just came fresh off the Project Veritas undercover sting, which I'm sure you saw floating around. We're going to get into it and how essentially 85% of those people that are censored are conservatives. And that is not a made-up number. We're going to get into a lot of that. So find the code here right below as far as the timestamp, and you can certainly go to that directly if you are watching this and want to come back to this a little bit later. But first, we've got a fascinating guy, Mark Robinson, who is running for lieutenant governor of the state, the great state of North Carolina. Mark Robinson came on the scene, as far as probably you seeing him a couple of years ago, when he spoke at the Greensboro City Council meeting. And he was so eloquent. He was so forceful in his approach. So what happened was the Greensboro City Council were about to cancel the gun show, the local gun show at the Greensboro Coliseum. And this guy, Mark, he doesn't even own a gun. He spoke forcefully about the right of Americans to own guns. And that video went viral, over 100 million views as of the time. It's probably gone up a lot since. And people everywhere saw him around the world. Well, now he is running for lieutenant governor of the great state of North Carolina. And we're going to be getting into it. We're going to be talking about Black Lives Matter. We're going to be talking about the voter ID law that was passed by North Carolinians that unfortunately has not been implemented. There was a liberal judge that got her grubby mitts on that law and prevented it from taking place. We're going to be talking about economic equality and how it shouldn't be coming from the government, and so much more. So we'll start with first playing the full video of Mark Robinson speaking to the Greensboro City Council that went viral. That's a couple of minutes. Then we'll bring Mark on. And then right afterwards, we will play the video, the Project Veritas, a short version of it, of Zach McElroy, the Facebook whistleblower, and bring him on as well. And again, the timestamp is below, so you can watch this and then come back to it a little bit later if you want to watch the second interview. So sit back, relax, pour yourself a drink, and enjoy the Whiskey Politic interviews with Mark Robinson and Zach McElroy.
I didn't have time to
You have to give us your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Mark Robinson. I live that's right here in Greensboro. I've lived in Greensboro all my life. I didn't have time to write a fancy speech. I didn't have time to, I didn't have the resource of an English teacher to sit down and write a speech with at school today and be brought over here, practice or anything. What I really came down here for is this. I've heard a whole lot of people in here talking tonight about this group and that group, and domestic violence and blacks, these minorities and that minority. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen who's never shot anybody, never committed a serious crime, never committed a felony. I've never done anything like that. But it seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous. I don't think Rod Serling could come up with a better script. It does not make any sense. The law-abiding citizens of this community and many communities around this country, we're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happens, because our rights are the ones that are being taken away. That's the reason why I came down here today. Gun show or no gun show, NRA or no NRA. I'm here to stand up for the law-abiding citizens of this community, because I'm going to tell you that what's going to happen. You can take the guns away from us all you want to. You all write a law, I follow the law, I'll bring my guns down here, I'll turn them in. But here's what's going to happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not going to turn their guns in. They're going to hold on to them. And what's going to happen when you have to send the police down there to go take them? The police can barely enforce the law as it is. As what I see, we demonize the police, criminalize and vilify the police, and we make the criminals into victims. And we're talking about restricting guns? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that when the police department's already hamstrung? You're not going to be able to go down here and take these guns from these criminals. So the criminals are going to hold on to their guns. They're still going to have them. They're still going to break in my house, and they're still going to shoot me with them. And guess who's going to be the one that suffers? It's going to be me. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, it is not going to happen without a fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean shots fired. I don't mean fist thrown. I mean I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city. And I am the majority. The majority of the people in this city are law-abiding, and they follow the law, and they want their constitutional right to be able to bear arms. They want to be able to go to the gun show and buy a hunting rifle or a sport rifle. There are no military-grade weapons sold at the gun show. An AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon. Anybody that would go into combat with an AR-15 is a fool. It's a semi-automatic .22 rifle. You'd be killed in 15 minutes in combat with that thing. So we need to dispel all these myths, and we need to drop all this division that we got going on here. Because the bottom line is, when that Second Amendment was written, whether the framers liked it or not, they wrote it for everybody. And I am everybody. And the law-abiding citizens of this city are everybody. And we want our rights, and we want to keep our rights. And by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. What an incredible video that was. I know it was a couple of years ago. Our viewers just had a chance. Many of them may have seen it for the first time. But let me ask you, what was the impact? What happened after that city council meeting? And that went viral, right? 100 million people have seen that thing. What happened?
Well, it went viral almost immediately. I was quite shocked when I gave the speech. It was an impromptu speech. Didn't write it, and I really didn't plan on speaking that night. I got down there in that meeting and listened to what was going on, and quite honestly, just got angry and decided that I had to say something. I didn't know what I was going to say, and what I ended up saying were things that I had been thinking for many, many years. And it resonated with a lot of people. The video went viral. It's actually upwards of 200 million views right now. There was the first round of it went around almost 70 million views. That was when I was still working in furniture manufacturing. I worked there for a little while after the video went viral, but the effect was almost immediate. Of course, people were reaching out to me, wanting me to come and speak at different events, Second Amendment rallies. I've done some things for the NRA. Everything that I've done for the NRA, by the way, has been pro bono. There's been no paid position from the NRA at all, and don't really want a paid position with the NRA. I just want to help that organization as much as I can. I've also done a lot of things I've done things with Gun Owners of America. That's another very good group. But most of my work I've been doing with the GOP. and with Republican candidates, because Republicans have really always embraced our constitutional rights and been the ones that have fought to expand constitutional rights for everyone. And they are the ones who have been standing up the most fierce for the Second Amendment. And of course, they came calling, and that's what's led me to where I am right now, running for lieutenant governor. Running for office was not something at all that I planned on doing, but eventually, I said I had to put my money where my mouth was, and I had to say, if we were going to really affect change, what we had to do is we had to step into the arena and try to do it at a statewide level. So that's what we decided to do.
Right. One of the things that really bothers me as a business advocate myself, I've been working with small businesses now for over a quarter of a century and helping them out, is so many of our politicians today, they come from a place of essentially, with no term limits. We see people in office that are there for 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, the presidential candidate by the Democrats this year is a person that has been in government for 51 years, and they couldn't fix the problem in half a century, and all of a sudden they're blaming this president. You're coming from a place of actually being an entrepreneur. You've owned your own business. You've worked for businesses. Tell me a little bit about that from the perspective of, fresh blood that is needed, that has actually been working in the real world. Well, that's what people ask me sometimes, how much political experience I have. And I tell them I don't have any political experience. And I don't ever want any political experience. What I want to have is experience serving the people that I'm supposed to serve and representing the people I'm supposed to represent. Political experience oftentimes is what causes our government, and most of the time is what causes our government to become stagnant and not do the will of the people that is supposed to be there to represent. What we need is people to go in office who have citizenship experience, business experience, experience in the real world, people who have felt the sting, the pain of bad legislation like NAFTA, people who understand how vital it is to have strong law enforcement in our communities, people who understand the dreadful effect of so many of the bad decisions that have been made at the government level. Folks that understand those things and can take those experiences into office and can properly represent those that have put them in office, and actually try to make life better for folks instead of just going in office and doing those two dreadful things we often see out of career politicians, which is try to get rich and try to get reelected. That is a cycle that we have got to break, and the only way it can be broken is that the people become politically engaged and become politically active, and remove those folks from office and put people in that are really trying to do the work of the people. Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. Now, your story is fascinating to me. I was looking you up, and your background. You come from a place where, if I understand correctly, you were the 9th of 10 different children that you in your family. Alcoholism, domestic abuse, you saw poverty, and then you went into the armed services. I think if I understand correctly, you were a medical specialist in the Army Reserves before going into business. Tell us a little bit about that and what that background and upbringing, what that gave you as far as this impetus now to come out with your perspective.
Well, I sometimes I make the statement and say, I had a non-traditional childhood. Because we did. I'm number 9 of 10 children. I have a very people would say is a non-traditional family. My mom was married twice. She was married to 2 different men. She had 5 children with her first husband, 5 children with my father. Our family was very fractured growing up. I have 2 sisters that I have never seen. I don't know. I've never met them. One of them has passed away, and one of them we cannot locate. I did spend a little time as a baby in foster care. My brothers talk about that time all the time. And we were very, very, very poor growing up. But the more I share that story with people, I've come to find out that story of my life is not really non-traditional. And here's why: because so many other people share those types of stories. Those storybook families that we talk about, mom and dad, 2.5 children, that has been my case in my life. I had two wonderful children I've raised into well-adjusted adults. I have a grandson and a grandchild on the way. My daughter is married. We had that so-called traditional family. But so many people do not have that. And so many people have not had that. And my story is not all that unique, because many people right here in North Carolina share that story. But I always tell people with that story, me being a child, a black man, born in the South, very impoverished family, a father who's an alcoholic, a mother who was a 5th grade dropout, to now be standing on the cusp of making history. That can only happen in the country that we call the United States of America. And that's why this nation is the greatest nation on earth, because it does not matter where you start. It's all about the opportunities you have, taking advantage of those opportunities, and where you end up. And it's a testament to the greatness of this nation and the goodness of our God that I'm where I am today.
It's commendable, and I love the message. And you've got a huge following in North Carolina and nationwide. And we'll put your website up so folks that are watching this can find you and help you and support you as well. But where in your life, at what point did you realize that A, you were interested in politics, and B, you kind of got a well-based sense of what your philosophy was?
I can pinpoint it exactly. Now, I've always been interested. I've always been patriotic. I've always loved our country. I've always loved the military and soldiers, and I've always loved that. But when I became politically aware was I think it was early 90s. I was having a conversation with my best friend, and he was already politically aware and was already a Republican. Growing up, we didn't talk about Republican and Democrat in my house amongst our family. We just talked about what was right and wrong. But there was a well-known radio host on television speaking, and I turned around and made a flippant comment and said that he was a racist. And my friend challenged me. He said, "How do you know that he's a racist?" And, being a kind of, at that point, kind of a pop culture person, I said, "Because everybody says he is." And he says, "Well, do you know him?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Have you ever read any of his books?" And I said, "No." And he said, "So you don't know anything about the man, but you call him a racist." I got mad at my friend. I decided to go out and buy this guy's book. I went out and bought his book. And when I started reading his book, I discovered that he was saying many of the things that I had been thinking my entire life. And that was when I discovered that I was a conservative. I went back and I talked to my friend about it. I admitted that I was wrong. We talked about it. He took me down to the local GOP, and we started working with the GOP, and I became a committed Republican. I learned about the history of the Republican Party and what the Republican Party has done all the way up to the current time. And my views naturally aligned with what they believed in. So it wasn't a thing where I needed to be convinced to join the Republican Party. I simply looked at the history of both parties, and for me, it was a no-brainer. Conservatism had been in my blood since I was a small child. It just took the challenge of a friend for me to realize it.
So you did your own research. You weren't allowing the narrative to be dictated to you for you to have to accept. You did your own research. And a lot of people don't do that today. They're basically going online, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it may be, and seeing what the mob are saying. And let's go, for example, to where you live in North Carolina, just south of the Mason-Dixon line. We're seeing statues that are being torn down by the angry mob right now. Some of them are abolitionists, Mark. I mean, I had my last guest, the last show that we just had on was Katie Hopkins, and I asked her, because they're tearing down statues of Churchill in England, who was against the fascists, right? Is this a problem with education? Are we just dealing with a whole bunch of stupid right now?
Absolutely. We are dealing with a misinformed public that does not understand, number one, too many people don't understand the real issue here. And the real issue here is not who the statue is, not where the statue is standing, not what the statue is supposed to represent. The real issue is this: do you have a right to form a mob and tear down something that you are diametrically opposed to? And the answer is no. Doing that flies in the face of everything that our Constitution is about, that our law and order is about. We cannot have marauding thugs of individuals roaming the country, tearing down symbols that they don't like. That flies in the face of everything that we stand for. Can we have a conversation about whether or not we should take down these monuments? Absolutely. Yeah. You're welcome to sit down to the table, and I can tell you all day long and school you all day long about why we should not. We can talk about that all day long, but what we cannot tolerate is violent mobs going out tearing down these statues. And by the way, it's odd to me that somebody would say that they're against racism and bigotry, but they would behave just like the racists and bigots behaved in Reconstruction when they were angry because they couldn't win the political argument in the South, and instead decided to violently get their way back into office. And the way they did it was by committing acts of terrorism. We see the same thing going on now. These folks cannot win their arguments socially. They can't win their arguments politically. And so they're resorting to mob violence. And that, my friend, is dangerous. That's the message that we need to be sending these folks. Secondly, for my money, there is no statue in this nation that should be torn down, because every statue to every person in history in this nation is a piece of our history. And we need not be ashamed of that history. We need to take our children down to those statues, explain to them who those people are, why those statues were erected, and why it's a testament to the greatness of this nation. Because even Confederate monuments, you may not agree with the Confederacy, but you can go down there and you can stand there and you can look at that Confederate monument and you can tell your children, once upon a time, this nation tore itself apart fighting over issues such as states' rights and slavery. But we were strong enough to survive, and we came out even stronger on the other side. So that statue is not a testament to where we've been. It's a testament to how far we've come. That's the message we need to be teaching our children, and unfortunately, we're not.
What about the idea of having a museum, North Carolina, take the statues of the Confederates and put them together in a museum with some lessons which pertain to exactly what you are, so you can teach it? I mean, the idea that we can just erase history and pretend it didn't exist because it doesn't happen to jibe with the zeitgeist, that we're currently in right now is insane to me. You never forget. But what about that idea as Lieutenant Governor? Would that be something you would support?
I'm open to any ideas that anybody wants to sit down and peacefully talk about. If we want to talk about moving these statues into parks where we put them up, and some type of heritage parks where we put them up with plaques that display what they are and explain who the people are, I'm open to those conversations. I'm completely open to the conversation. What I'm not open to is being dictated to by a bunch of thugs who think they have the right to tear up personal or private property. But I am open to the conversation because this is a big issue. There's a lot of things surrounding Confederate monuments that are concerning to people in the history of it. But again, that's no reason for us to take those statues down, I don't believe. I think that's a teachable moment where we can teach people about our history, and more importantly, show people how far we've come. Right here in North Carolina, we had a statue called Silent Sam that sat at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Certainly when that statue was put up, there were those folks that took an opportunity to take a swipe at people of different races and say some absolutely downright racist things when that statue was being erected. But here it is. Silent Sam should stand on that campus right now as a symbol again, not to where we were, but to how far we have come. Because now Chapel Hill is a place that invites people from all over the world, of every stripe, every color, every sexual orientation is admitted onto that campus. And that should be what they should be proud of. They shouldn't be tearing that statue down and hiding their history. They should be proud of the fact that they overcame any racism that statue once represented. And it should stand as a monument to that.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on BLM right now? Black Lives Matter. Are you supporting? Are you mixed? Where do you come from?
You want to know my exact thoughts? You want me to take the filter completely off?
Yeah.
The only word that comes to my mind when I think about Black Lives Matter is one word: hypocrisy. Black Lives Matter is, and I'll say this to anybody, CNN, CBS, I don't care who is here. I do not filter myself when I say this. Black Lives Matter is a sham organization, because here it is. Black Lives Matter raised a bunch of sand over George Floyd, who was a career criminal. Now, it's not right that a man was murdered. He should not have been murdered by Derek Chauvin, but he was a career criminal. They raised a bunch of sand over Michael Brown, who tried to wrestle a police officer's gun away from him. They raised a bunch of sand about Freddie Gray, who was a career drug dealer. But Black Lives Matter on a national level remains silent on the murder of Tyshawn Lee. And I bring this up all the time. If there's any rallying cry for the moniker Black Lives Matter, it should be 9-year-old Tyshawn Lee, a 9-year-old boy who was executed. I'll say this again. He was executed by gang members to get back at his father, who was in a rival gang. A 9-year-old boy executed. And to hear flippant comments made about Tyshawn Lee, like the woman who defended the men who killed him, her comment was, maybe we can learn something from this, maybe we can't. I don't know. For folks to be making those type of comments over the murder of a 9-year-old boy, but to be in the streets setting fire to an entire city over the murder of a career criminal who, by the way, his offender was immediately fired and immediately charged and immediately attacked by just about everybody in this country, from police officer unions to the president of the United States, is hypocritical. Because when we see Black people in neighborhoods continue to murder each other through gang use and drug use over and over again, and there's abortion clinics on every corner in these neighborhoods, murdering children in the wombs, Black Lives Matter is silent. So the only thing that I think about Black Lives Matter, and the only word that comes to my mind about Black Lives Matter, is hypocrisy. When they start standing up for all Black lives in the womb, those killed by gangs, those killed by drugs, the Tyshawn Lees of the world, and when they start standing up for Black police officers who are murdered while trying to protect us on the streets, then I'll believe that they really believe that Black Lives Matter, but not until then.
Wow, that's powerful. And listen, I agree with that. Now, as a white guy, you have to be somewhat careful in what you say. But one of the things we've talked about on this show, Mark, is the fact that they have essentially become a fundraising arm for the far extreme left in this country. Mm-hmm. And I've said it on other shows. Those that haven't heard this, if you go to blacklivesmatter.com and click on donate, the hyperlink it takes you to is Act Blue, which supports NARAL, the pro-abortion rights. It supports the far left and the socialist Democrat Party type candidates that are existing out there. Do you think people on the street know this? Do they even care?
I don't think they do, and I don't think they know. And of course, our news media is not going to let them know. When we talk about these things, we have to remember the whole myriad of things that are causing the wool to be pulled over people's eyes. I'll give you a perfect example. I made a meme the other day and put on Facebook. All of a sudden, Aunt Jemima is offensive. A real woman who really created a business and became a kitchen icon across America. Her image, the image of a brown woman on a bottle of syrup is offensive. The image of a Native American on a package of butter is offensive. The image of the cream of wheat fella is offensive. Meanwhile, you turn the TV on and you see advertisements featuring Snoop Dogg, who is a drug-smoking, foul-mouthed former gang member, who I found a picture of him online with 2 Black women in chains, walking them like they were dogs.
Yeah,
these are the images that we're feeding to folks in society now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're washing all these other images away because they're so-called offensive, while leaving up images and holding up people like Snoop Dogg as quasi-heroes. So we are certainly seeing that the messages that are being sent out there are not the right ones.
Yeah. And
it goes part and parcel of the deception you just said with the Black Lives Matter movement.
One of the big pushes that BLM is doing right now through their protests and their rallies and their fundraising is to get people out to vote. And they've raised a huge amount of money. Last week's number, I haven't seen this week's numbers, but last week's numbers was $30 million. And I'm sure it's gone up significantly since. Out of that, $200,000 has actually gone to the Black community. The rest of it has gone to candidates that they're supporting. But let me ask you this, because you're running as a Republican in North Carolina, Mark, and Democrats, by and large, run almost every major and mid-sized city where we saw looting and vandalism and crime and violence. And we see cities like Chicago, it looks like Mogadishu, Somalia. The media ignores all of that, though, don't they?
Right. And sadly, not only the media ignores it, the very people that are in the cities ignore it. We saw people protesting in Minneapolis over the police department. My question is for those people is, why are you protesting? You have exactly what you voted for. You voted for a far left Democrat mayor. You voted for a far left Democrat city council. Those are the folks that are in charge of administering your police agency. If your city is racist and your police agency is racist, it's obvious that you put those racists in place because those are the folks that you voted for. And that story can be repeated, as you said, all across this country. The very things that folks are complaining about in the very cities that they are complaining about them in, they have voted to put those things in place and the people who are pushing those agendas. They have nobody to blame but themselves, because conservatives and Republicans have been screaming for years that the ideas and the ideologies that these leftists hold destroy cities, they destroy lives, they're bad for people, they're bad for cities. And in these major cities, a lot of folks have not listened. Now that they're getting the results of those things, the first thing they want to do is turn around and blame conservatives and Republicans. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. And, you see cities like Chicago or Los Angeles or, Minneapolis, whatever it is, decades and decades and decades, Mark. It isn't like it's, going back and forth. And they blame Donald Trump, who's been in office for 3 years. I mean, it's just incredible to me. But let's go back to North Carolina, because it actually is an interesting thing to me how North Carolina, the voting laws there, how it relates to the rest of the country. Now, I know in 2018, 55% of North Carolinians voted for an amendment which would require ID to be shown in order to vote. To me, that is just common sense. You can't do anything today without ID. The amendment passed, but what happened?
Well, what happened is a leftist judge who legislates from the bench named Loretta Biggs decided that she would side with the social justice warriors and say that somehow having an ID to vote is racist. Now, I've had many conversations about many people about voter ID. The overwhelming majority of people believe that it's common sense legislation for the common good, just like we say in our campaign. But there is that group of people who say that it's racist. And to those folks, I would say this. It's actually racist to say that voter ID is racist, because in effect, what you're saying is this, that poor people and people of color do not have enough sense to get an ID to be able to vote. Now, you tell me they have enough sense to get an ID to get welfare. They have enough sense to get ID to be able to show that they're of age to buy lottery tickets and alcohol. But they don't have enough sense to get an ID, a free ID, to protect the integrity of their vote. Anybody who is against voter ID, there is no good argument against it. There's no good argument against it. Let's just lay that out there first. I personally know someone who spent decades in prison, and the very first thing when he did when he got out of prison was get a driver's license. So driver's licenses are not out of bounds for anyone. IDs are not out of bounds for anyone. Anybody can get an ID if they have the proper papers in order to get it, and it's just common sense. But anybody who is in support of supplanting voter ID and suppressing voter ID is obviously in favor of voter fraud. And that's what the whole thing is about.
Is there an appeal happening right now? What's going to be happening with this? Because again, 55% of North Carolinians voted for this, and you got one judge standing in the way. What's happening?
It is. The problem here in North Carolina is our Court of Appeals and our Supreme Court is packed with leftist judges who want to legislate from the bench. So it looks like
you've got a Democrat governor right now.
And we have a Democrat governor as well who's very much against voter ID, because he needs to be able to play fast and loose with the vote, as Democrats often always do. It looks like that's going to be caught in limbo for a while because of that. But
so it's not.
I believe if we continue to bang the drum on that and move forward on that, I think we can get that legislation passed. It needs to be federal legislation.
If you got 55% of North Carolinians that wanted it, and the state is against it, I'm sure there's going to be some level of anger that we can see. Maybe that will help you in the election. But there's another law in the state of North Carolina, as I referred to earlier, that some of what's happening in North Carolina can actually be related to what's going on nationally, and that is that voter harvesting is illegal, correct? I mean, you just had a special election because of this. A couple of, last year, I think it was, and a couple of Republican took congressional seats on this. But in states like California, that same law, which is in North Carolina, which says that it's open to fraud, which it is. What voter harvesting is that you or I or anybody can go to anybody's house. We can look on the list of Democrats and Republicans and say, we can take your vote to the canvassing board and we can just throw it in the trash. Nothing happens with that.
Right.
California, it is legal. And in California, there were 7 congressional seats that the GOP won on election night that were overturned as the mail-in ballots and these voter harvested ballots and absentee ballots came in over the next several days to even over a month.
Right.
Is that a threat to our democracy?
It absolutely is. It's a threat to our democratic process. It is. For my money, I believe that the voter integrity needs to be shored up across this nation. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would disagree with me on this, but I believe that on the days when we vote, I believe that it should be one day. I believe that everybody who shows up should have to show their ID. I don't believe there should be any ballots that should be cast in any absentee type way. I believe that we have enough technology and enough connectivity that we should be able to get polling stations in every place that we need them in, up to and including military sites and any places where people are incapacitated and can't get out of their homes. I truly believe that. The election process in this nation needs to be shored up at a federal level, and there needs to be a federal standard for elections in this country. It is past time for us to be playing around with this. We need to end the serious threat of voter fraud and make sure that our most sacred right in this country, the right to cast our vote, is protected. And it starts with voter ID and it moves down from there.
Gotcha. Now, as Lieutenant Governor, you know, one of the things that you're going to be looking at is not just the social issues that we've been talking about, gun rights and everything else, but also the economy. And the economy is very localized across this country now. And one of the things that I think that this president has done so effectively is create these empowerment zones, these entrepreneur economies in different cities. And before COVID, we saw unemployment in the Black community at the lowest level in history. We saw that across the board in multiple demographics. Obviously, COVID has just thrown all of those numbers, out, and we're going to have to rebuild the economy here. But for many on the left, they believe that it is big government as the solution, even though they haven't solved anything in the 60 years since the Great Society. Talk a little bit about what your game plan would be to help some of the cities in North Carolina and how you would do that.
Well, for me, I think it all boils down to one word, boils down to education. It really boils down to education. I made the statement when we have seeing all these riots that real empowerment doesn't lie in burning down the corner store. Real empowerment lies in teaching your children entrepreneur skills that will help them own the corner store. We have got to start teaching our children in education. We have got to start giving them skills that will help them succeed in the free market and in the capitalist system. Right now, what we're seeing in schools is we're teaching our children we're teaching our children that socialism is good and that capitalism is bad. We need to be doing the exact opposite. We need to be teaching our children about the innumerable dangers of socialism, how many nations it has destroyed, how many lives it has taken. And then we need to start teaching our children about the innumerable advantages of capitalism. And at the top of that list is teaching our children how to operate in this free market, how they can build businesses, how they can take their skills and maximize their potential in that market. We're not teaching that anymore. We're teaching our children, just go off, make good grades in school, then go to some big fancy university, get a piece of paper, and everything will be okay. That's not what education is all about. Education is about, number one, building a strong base. That strong base is reading, writing, and mathematics. After you build that strong base, then you move into helping those children to understand what their talents and abilities are and how they can take advantage of those talents and opportunities inside that free market. And then you teach them about the tenets of the free market, how it operates, how capital operates, how the credit system operates, how to become an entrepreneur. Those are the things that we need to move back into teaching our children. And I think if we do that at an educational level, we'll see more and more of these children coming out of schools understanding that they can succeed because they've been taught how they can succeed.
Mark, we introduced you on top of the video that you had at the Greensboro City Council a couple of years ago. The left has only pushed double down as far as their attempt to try to restrict guns. And now you've got some parts of the left, many mainstream left, and obviously the far left that are trying to reduce police forces around the country. So first they want to take your guns and then they want to reduce the police. Are they trying to hurt decent Americans here, or are they just that stupid?
Well, it's something that I mentioned in that speech. It's something I've been saying ever since and even before. It is always the law-abiding citizen who's trying to do it right who ends up being punished. The criminals that we saw right here in Greensboro, the police were told to stand down while those folks busted out windows and sprayed graffiti all over everything, and they were allowed to just run roughshod over the entire downtown of Greensboro and even threaten the folks in the suburbs and say they were going to come out there and assault those folks. Meanwhile, law-abiding citizens are told every day, you shouldn't have the right to own an AR-15, and you shouldn't have the right to defend yourself. It is absolutely disturbing. Law-abiding folks are always the last ones, and here's the worst part about it. We're the ones that foot the bill for everything. It is our tax dollars that pay for these entitlement programs. It is our tax dollars and our hard work that keeps this economy going. And in the current time that we're at right now, we have folks that are out breaking the law that are not being held accountable for it. And we have governors and mayors who are destroying businesses by illegally keeping them closed and putting more and more restrictions on these folks' livelihoods. It's a double whammy of stuff that is proven what conservatives have been saying for decades, and that's this. Leftists are not the friends of the people. Leftists are a friend to the system. They intend to put their thumbs on top of the people so that they can keep every piece of power they can. Yeah. And we can see that happen during this, through the COVID crisis, and we can see it during these riots. It's been a double whammy of destruction and hypocrisy, and it's got to come to an end at some point.
Mark, last question for you, and greatly appreciate you taking the time with us today. And we'll point everybody over to your website here in just a moment. But Black conservatives take a tremendous amount of pushback and grief by other Black Americans in this country. The fact is that, as Candace Owens talks about, the Democrat plantation is just a continuation of the plantation we saw, 200 years ago, 150 years ago. What has been the response that you have received? What's the support like, and what's some of the antagonism that you faced?
Well, we have gotten a ton of support from across the board from all types of people. We have people who have embraced our message of every stripe, and we certainly appreciate that. As far as pushback goes, I expect that to come, and it comes from the leftists, and they try to take everything that I say out of context and try to twist my words, but I'm not a person that's afraid of that at all, and I'm not a person who's going to curb anything that I say because I live by this moniker. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to lay it at your feet. What you do with it is your business. But I truly believe that if you stand up boldly and proclaim the truth boldly, and you're saying things that are truly going to help people, and people see that you'll have enough people that will come to that will rally around you, that you can be successful and will embrace that message and carry you on so we can actually get some of these problems solved. So I'm not really worried about the naysayers at all because we see the results of what they voted in. We've seen it in Minnesota. We've seen it in Ferguson. We've seen it in Baltimore. We've seen it in California back in the 90s when leftist politicians were running that joint out there and continue to run that place out there. We see it up there in Seattle where they've taken over the streets up there. So we see the fruits of what these leftists have done. And we also see the fruits of what hard-working, strong, principled conservatives and Republicans have done right here in the state of North Carolina, where we've turned around every metric in this state since 2010. So the proof is in the pudding, all the way up to the president of the United States. They can talk bad about him all they want to, but he's raised every ship in this nation, whether it be the ship, whether you want to talk about how he's lowered Black unemployment, fought for criminal justice reform, all the great things he's done it for Americans across the board. So again, the proof is in the pudding. Conservative principles win the day and make life better, and leftist ideas destroy communities. We can see it plain. It's a fact.
How are the polls looking right now for November?
We have not run any polls yet, but we're going to soon. But we're expecting we're going to do very well in the polls. Good luck to you, Mark. And tell everybody where they can find you online, your website, social media. My website is Mark Robinson for NC. You can go there and sign up and do all the great things we need to do for us on our campaign there. Find out all about us on there. Facebook, my page is Mark Robinson for NC. And then I have my personal Facebook page, which is Mark Keith Robinson. You go to my personal Facebook page, you get a big kick out of that one. I've got a lot of good content on there.
All right. We'll have to connect over there.
Yes,
Mark,
sir.
thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. I wish you nothing but success and luck.
Yes,
North
sir.
Carolina and America needs you. I have a funny feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of you, Mark Robinson. So thank you for what you're doing. Greatly appreciate it. Cheers.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wow, Mark was impressive. I don't know about you. Go check him out on his social media. We had all the links below during his interview, and fascinating guy. I think he's going to be going far, and definitely greatly appreciate Mark spending so much time with us today to go through all of the different issues that he's focused on. But next up, we've got the Facebook whistleblower. You've seen him, Zach McElroy. He was on the Project Veritas whistleblower video. This is a guy that was on in the inner sanctum at Facebook. He was the only conservative and kept it quiet. And the things that he saw, well, we're going to play a short version of the Project Veritas video and then go straight into it with Zach McElroy.
Are you afraid?
I think the truth is more powerful than any NDA.
It's a very progressive company who's very anti-MAGA.
I think they're very biased with who they protect.
Facebook.
They shadow bans.
Yeah.
Facebook's notorious for it, and they say they don't, but it's clear that people's content don't comes up because it's been defiltered off the queue. They're doing something, man. They're just trying to pretend like they're not.
To me, censorship online is one of the biggest issues facing us in the lead up to the 2020 election. Let me run something by you. You know that civic harassment queue that we've been in lately?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is it like all Republicans in there?
It's all Republicans. But a lot of it comes off of Trump's page specifically.
So for 75 to 80% of the posts to be targeting Republicans and conservatives, you can say it was a bot, but somebody had to design that algorithm. So really, somebody at Facebook.
If a Trump post was to come up and it was promoting Trump and I could take that down, then I feel like that's the
You'll delete all of them. With the MAGA hat, I'm gonna delete it for terrorism. Yeah.
Like if you see a conservative post, you just get rid of it, right? Right.
I don't give no I'll delete it.
We were told to leave this image up as long as it didn't say, oh, I'm going to actually kill Donald Trump or something like that.
So you've deleted just hashtag MAGA?
Yeah.
Like the post gone?
It's common sense.
I know a lot of people are taking down, Trump posts.
Yeah, I knew that too. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to hold you accountable for taking it down.
So it's for the better.
Yeah, hell yeah. You gotta get the Cheeto out of office.
How many of you are they take your own stance and say we're just deleting whatever all the Trump posts?
Probably like 16 of us.
And you guys, like, you just delete everyone.
Yeah.
I know that Facebook does have a Trump rule where they still allow him on the platform even though he says things that if anyone else said it.
And that's the fortunate thing is, even if he does say something, if it gets repeated, we can at least get the average Joe.
Like half the time when I delete people for like pro-Trump, I'm like, you should be on a watch list, dude.
Yeah. Seriously.
Trump supporters like to throw around like Trump derangement syndrome as like, liberals being crazy. I like to think of it as actually you're the one that has Trump derangement syndrome. You're losing your goddamn mind as soon as because they're just like, Trump 2020. Yeah. And it's like, that sounds a little more deranged to me.
Well, to talk about all of this and the whistleblower himself, Zach McElroy. Zach, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing very well, thank you. So from what we've been seeing over at Project Veritas, the reports that are out there in the media, from what I understand, you worked with Facebook, with a group within Facebook called Cognizant. Is that correct?
Yes, I worked for a company called Cognizant that has contract with Facebook for the content moderation services.
Okay, and this was down in Florida?
Yes, it was the Tampa office.
Okay, and how long were you with them for?
About a year and a month.
Okay, and so the reports that we're seeing coming from everything that has come out of the interview with James O'Keefe, great guy, he's been on the show here, is that you were seeing some things that made you really uncomfortable. What were those things, and what I guess was there an event that caused you to contact James and discuss this?
Sure. Well, the issues at Facebook are twofold. I think we have issues of content moderators themselves going rogue and deleting things that they feel like they just don't like to see on the internet. And you have the issue of the policy, which has its biases and their selective enforcement of the policy through exclusions to certain policies, which number of all these things are talked about in the video. As far as my motivation to come forward, I'd actually had it initially when I started working there. The training process was about a month or 4 weeks, and had me examining all the policies. They're telling me exactly what they mean, how to enforce them, and so the biases within were apparent right away. But I didn't know where to go, and I didn't think I could do anything about it myself. So it took some months, but I had a chance meeting with Eric Cochran, the Pinterest insider, and I thought, well, why not? I'll exchange business cards with him, because I'd actually been aware of PV, Project Veritas, for 5 or so years at the time, but I hadn't considered actually coming to them with this information. And fortunately, they were interested, and we were rolling within a few weeks.
Now, Eric Cochran, he is with, you said Pinterest. He was a whistleblower over there, correct?
Yes, he was.
Okay, and what was his report? What did he come out with?
Well, he exposed a lot of deboosting, algorithmic bias at Pinterest. I believe there were a lot of things that they did that were, they kind of scrutinized, or what would you call it? They were biased against, I suppose, Christianity. I think there was a thing about Bible quotes which were suppressed, and some other famous conservative figures, I think, also had their accounts deboosted, or whatever it is that they call it over there.
Now, the things that you were seeing at Facebook, I've been with Facebook. Most people use Facebook in some capacity. We all believe we're being shadow banned in some way, or being deboosted, or whatever the terms may be. But you were seeing, and there are recordings now with the Project Veritas video that you were participating with, that content moderators were bragging about deleting posts and comments supporting President Donald Trump and conservative causes, and even to the point where you've got some people there saying, if you're wearing a MAGA hat, I am getting rid of you. You're a terrorist, essentially.
Yeah, so there is an issue, I think, which stems from perhaps the culture, I guess, around the workforce, or more specifically, how what their hiring process is in the first place. I think Facebook tends to hire employees within blue states and blue cities, so it seems to be a matter of course that most of their employees will likewise be left-leaning, perhaps liberal types. And if you have a workforce of mostly left-leaning liberal types, perhaps the more extreme end of them will naturally try to exert their influence and perhaps abuse their power for political gain.
Okay. And there are plenty of, I guess, taped reports in this Project Veritas interview with you. They show undercover, behind the scenes people essentially saying those things. And you are saying that about 85% roughly of those people that are, I guess, deboosted or kicked off, or posts are taken down, 85% of those are roughly Republican conservative leaning.
So that's regarding this thing called the Civic Harassment queue. Now, to explain that, so Facebook, in the content moderation scheme, there are different workflows, so to speak, for all of the policies that could potentially be violated, for the most part. Facebook had rolled out recently, I think it was the end of last year, the beginning of this year, a workflow, a flow of posts called the Civic Harassment queue, the purpose of which was allegedly on paper, to monitor the pages of political figures, politicians, journalists, people in the political sphere, their posts, their comments on their posts. It would be a random sampling of these posts, not things that people actually reported, things that a bot collected and fed to us to review and make sure that nobody was harassing anybody, nobody was bullying people, or otherwise violating policies in the comment sections and the posts of these figures.
Mhm.
Now, you might expect that because it's supposed to be a random, automatically generated collection of posts from these places, you probably would figure that the split of the figures' ideologies would reflect probably the nations. It'd probably be like 50-50 Republicans and Democrats in that workflow. But I witnessed, on average, 2/3 up to 70%, and some days even 80% of the posts in that queue were conservative figures, right-leaning figures, very few left-leaning figures in that queue.
And this is an algorithm, right? So this is human made. So do you believe there's malicious intent by coders to create this?
Well, I want some answers. I think I can only speculate at this point, and I think I think I can't speculate. I'm not here to speculate, but we've got this evidence and this content that kind of speaks for itself. I'd like to have a explanation. I would like to hear what they have to say for themselves regarding this.
And you've actually stated that you would love to be brought up at Congress and subpoenaed and discuss this in front of America. We saw Mark Zuckerberg come out last year and talk about this. And, when you see Mark Zuckerberg talking from a perspective of, that he truly believes that, they only take off content that's going to cause harm or relating to terrorism or whatever it may be. Do you believe that he knows more than he was letting on, or is just the monster too big and he just doesn't have any idea?
That's a very good question. It's something that would probably be better exposed on the internal HQ side of things. As it was, I was only a content moderator, so I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes at Facebook HQ, and that's something that I'll be really interested in seeing, catching a glimpse into. Certainly another insider, perhaps someone higher up than I was, someone inside Facebook HQ, would be fantastic to see come forward.
So the whole idea and the discussion and the debate that we're seeing in Congress right now, Zach, is regarding the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And essentially what that does is it separates publishers from platforms, right? I mean, you and I we're speaking on Zoom right now. Zoom can't be held responsible for something you and I say. But on Facebook, they're actually editing. They are demonetizing, they're getting rid of, so they become in fact an editor. Talk a little bit about that and what this argument is going to essentially lead to as we start having this discussion, because free speech, that's it for us. If we lose the First Amendment and you and I can't talk at the equivalent of the water cooler, which is now social media, we're done for as a country, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think Section 230 is a very good thing to bring up. And, the thing of it is Section 230, of course, is it's a slightly nuanced subject, and something that I think will be very important to be hashed out publicly in the coming days. And I am hoping for some sort of legislative action, some sort of, actual substantive change as a result of this. I think, you could make an argument that definitely Facebook is acting more as a publisher rather than a platform, and thus is not immune and does not have the protections of Section 230. So we'll have to see how that plays out, and I hope that it will play out. I hope that this actually will come forward and be discussed, and there will be, talks. And I'm wholeheartedly enthusiastic about being a part of that. I will be happy to testify and say what I saw. It's nothing more than speaking only the truth and saying what I saw. It's what I saw.
Now, you're no longer working with Facebook. I guess your contract ended before all this happened, right?
Yeah, so the contract with between Cognizant and Facebook was terminated. Everybody was laid off from both Cognizant offices at the end of February, actually.
Okay, and so don't NDAs typically continue after you are no longer with the company?
Probably, yeah.
So are you concerned legally?
It's simply more important than this. It's bigger than me. I am just a guy, but this is something that affects the nation. This is something that can change the future of our country, because we're in an election cycle and it's getting kind of close. We're kind of running out of time. So I think this is a much bigger issue than anything that I could have to worry about in my personal life.
That's certainly commendable and very courageous as well. And I understand you have a GoFundMe page?
Yes, I do. I say that with humility because I'm a guy who likes to work for his living. But in the wake of all of this insanity. And of course, coming with this will bring some notoriety, and that's going to be a bit of a hassle. So it's been a humbling experience to see the positive response to this fundraiser that's been set up. And I wish I could thank everybody individually from the bottom of my heart. It's GoFundMe.com/expose Facebook, which is also the hashtag for this story, expose Facebook.
We'll put the link below for everybody if they want to throw in a few, dollars for you and help you out. And I certainly suggest everybody does. Brave people like you are few and far between. Let me ask you a last couple of questions here for you. Zach, you work with Facebook. You are talking about Facebook. We've heard about people being demonetized and shadow banned or whatever it is on Twitter, YouTube. Likewise, is this ubiquitous across the social media titans?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there is, among the Titans, certainly, there is a sort of, I wouldn't say collusion, perhaps more like they kind of like have each other's backs. I think we just saw yesterday, after the release of this story on Twitter, the video published had over 1 million views within hours. It had something like 70,000+ tweets about it, and Twitter seemed to be running interference for Facebook because this doesn't even have anything to do with them, yet they prevented the hashtag expose Facebook from trending at all in the US. We saw hashtag Taco Tuesday trending number 15, I think, at one point, and the #1 hashtag was Ron Jeremy with, I believe, 10,000 tweets. Expose Facebook, 1 million+ views, 70 to 80,000 tweets, not on there at all. So.
Jeez, Ron Jeremy's still a thing? I sat next to him at the back of a Delta plane about 15 years ago. The man smelled so badly, I had to move. I'm not kidding. But anyway, that's another issue altogether. Zach, so where do people go? What do people do now if they're concerned about being, obviously edited out of our conversation, of our town square today? Where do they go? What options are there?
Well, if you're on the inside, I think if you're in a situation similar to me, where you're on the inside of a company and you're in a position where you can expose some bias that you see, I think that's just the best and most important thing that you can do. And I think Project Veritas is about the only company that does what they're doing, the only place that does what they're doing. And I can say from experience that they've got your back. They'll do you right. So if you're in the position, or someone who's in the position who might be interested in coming forward, their tip line, I believe, is veritastips@protonmail.com. And I think that's going to be very important to have a lot more people doing what I did coming forward, because, we want legislative action, but what's going to really push that to keep that going and perhaps actually get some substantive change is a tidal wave of people coming forward and saying, this is how it really is. They're not telling you the truth. And if you have so many voices coming forward, you can't silence them all.
Yeah. Zach, where, again, drop the GoFundMe link, and where else can people find you and learn about you?
Certainly. The GoFundMe is GoFundMe.com/expose Facebook, which is also the hashtag on Twitter. My Twitter is at ZachMCE. That's ZACHMCE.
Great. Greatly appreciate it. Best of luck with everything. You are a brave soul, my friend, and thank you for everything that you're doing, and we look forward to seeing bigger and better things for you down the road. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wow, what a brave fellow. And you know what? There were two brave fellows we just had, Mark and Zach. And this is what we like to focus on here at Whiskey Politics. I said this to Bevelyn Beatty last week. She was the young lady who spoke in Chop, whatever they're calling it. It's about bravery. And, it's people like Mark and Bevelyn and Zach, and we just had on Katie Hopkins as well. If you missed that episode, it was during the week. It's about bravery. It's about standing up no matter how many arrows you take, no matter how many threats you take to your income, to you personally. Most people won't do that. They've got a mortgage to pay. They've got college tuition, and they just kind of keep quiet. And I think personally, what the left are trying to do right now is to use the pressure of the mob to silence you. Whereby if you come out and say, hey, look, I want to stand and salute the flag, I'm a proud patriot, that all of a sudden you're a racist. Yeah, I mean, this is the discussion and kind of the narrative that's coming out right now. And folks like Mark Robinson, and Zach McElroy, Katie Hopkins, Bevelyn Beatty. I mean, these are the types of people that are pushing back. And we're so proud to have them here to showcase them to the world so that you can learn about them as well, because these are the new patriots. These are the patriots of our time. You know, they talk about a civil war. Yeah, maybe there's not people fighting each other in the streets yet, but our leaders, those with the voices, those are the ones that are fighting back. You've got to, tip your hat to these people. So thank you for watching. If you are this far into the interview, obviously you appreciate those types of people as well. Please share this. We are on social media. You can find me at David Sussman on Twitter. Of course, our YouTube channel is Whiskey Politics. Please share this interview out. And of course, as well, you can find our new broadcasting network, The Range Broadcasting Network, where we are really proud to be with some other fantastic voices that are out there. And of course, you can find us on all of our social media like Instagram, Facebook, and the like. So thanks so much. We'll be back again real soon with some more fascinating interviews here at Whiskey Politics. Cheers.